Joining me live is the Director of Growing Families Australia, Sam Everington. Sam, thank you for your time. This is a really important discussion. You've actually been through the surrogacy process. Can you just talk us through that?
Yeah, look, it can be a really tricky process to navigate as an intending parent who can't have kids yourself. I mean, we were forced to go overseas for surrogacy over 12 years ago now, and it was a really tough process. That there has to be more regulation involved in this area because there's not a lot of people can go online and basically, choose an agency without even meeting the surrogate. And we were caught up in real issues we had overseas, and that's why I got involved with support, because we are trying now to put regulations in place, at least voluntarily, to help that.
Yes, I've also heard of personal stories where people have been in such a desperate position where they've been put in, desperate positions overseas trying to go through this surrogacy process. What kind of regulations would you like to see?
Look, we need to have ethical guidelines in place which countries agree on globally to make sure we don't get exploitation of surrogates. We don't have surrogates being moved across borders. And there are safe, ethical places to do this. For us, it's all about the rights of the child and putting them first. So we want to make sure that the surrogate is having proper screening and counselling before she goes forward. She knows what she's entering into. She's living in her own home. There's transparency around the process, and the parents have direct contact with their surrogate throughout the pregnancy to make sure they build up a solid relationship. Ideally, we wouldn't have to go overseas for surrogacy. It'd be great if we could do much more of it here. And we have been lobbying a lot in the last few years with state governments here in Australia to make the regulations easier to work with at home.
Pope Francis's comments calling for surrogacy to be banned worldwide, that must hit you pretty hard, those comments.
Yeah, look, it's a pretty insensitive way about it. We've seen that bans just don't work. I mean, Australia's tried banning commercial surrogacy overseas in some states, and it doesn't work. I think what Pope Francis doesn't realise is that there are thousands of women out there who are happy to carry babies for other couples, who love bringing that joy to families. And there is a way to do this which is responsible and ethical. And putting outright bans in place is just a crazy idea.
Sam, in Western Australia, they are the only state in the country banning same-sex couples from applying for surrogacy. Would you label that discrimination?
Oh, totally. And it goes against federal anti-discrimination laws clearly. There's currently a case being mounted against the WA government in this area because we see it as outrageous that ban is still in place, which is basically forcing that part of the population to go offshore to have their family. It's been way too long in the making. I mean, we are putting great pressure on WA right now to do that and make sure that comes through, because it's just not fair. Saying to couples in this day and age that because you're gay, you can't raise a family via this route it's just ridiculous.
Surrogacy is open to single women in all states and territories except the ACT, but not single men. Talk us through that.
Yeah, look, again, that's a glitch in the laws in ACT. ACT was one of the first jurisdictions to put in surrogacy laws well over a decade, probably 20 years ago. And back then they weren't even thinking of single women. They are now doing a review of the laws in ACT, and we are fairly confident that will be fixed up in the current review, which we've made submissions to make sure that that's allowed. Because, again, it pushes a part of the population, offshore or interstate to do this kind of thing. And one of the things we want to do with surrogacy is try and make it as easy as possible for people, surrogates particularly, so they can carry and not have to sort of cross borders to have embryo transfers. And that's another part of the laws in our country that need to be fixed urgently.
I mean, yes, when people are in that situation, they go to desperate measures, and sometimes that can be putting people in danger as well. What would be your advice to anyone who may be watching this right now who is considering surrogacy?
Look, they really need to get expert advice from organisations like ours. Going online and looking at sort of online reviews or ads is the riskiest way about this. There are a number of dodgy operators out there working in all parts of the world who can claim to give you a reliable process, and unfortunately that's not the case. We've had to do huge work with lawyers and experts around the world to try and come up with an ethical framework. And people need to know what they're doing. They need to get the right kind of advice early so they're not stuck in situations like we saw happen in Greece just a few months ago, where, you know, what seemed to be a reliable operator was closed down because of terribly unethical practices.
Indeed, and so many innocent families caught up in that saga there. Sam, thank you for your time today. A remarkable conversation.